Hello, welcome to lesson 4, critical thinking with inquiry. We're going back to inquiry, but now we're kind of adding the idea of critical thinking, whatever that is. And what critical thinking is evaluating information, thinking about it in comparison to other things we know, checking our assumptions. We assume things all the time, and making sure those assumptions aren't causing us to miss important ideas. And then figuring out our next move, from what we currently know, what's the next best thing to do? So let's take a look at this idea, evaluating information. So what do you know about whatever you're thinking about or looking at? What are you thinking about that? What are the thoughts you're having when you're exposed to that idea? And is it cap? Are you thinking things that are just not for sure true, right? So let's have an example. So let's say you go home and your sweater or your hoodie is missing from your room. Do you know where it is, why it's gone, if somebody took it, or are you thinking it? Like, oh, my sister or my brother took it. I can't believe them. They're always taking my things. Are you thinking that, just going off on that tangent without any proof, any evidence that actually happened? Are you making an assumption, right, about what happened to it or where it is? So we got to check those assumptions, right? Is it for sure? You come home, is that for sure? Is that the most likely explanation? Is there nothing else that has a better chance of being true? Would you bet money, right? Would you be like, oh yeah, I'll put $5 down right now. I'll bet my phone. You can have my phone if I'm wrong. Are you that sure about what you're currently thinking? So in this example with the sweater, right? Did you misplace it, put it somewhere not in your room? Did your sister, your brother pretend if you don't have one? Or your mom, or someone else, some other adult takes care of you, right? Which of those is the most likely explanation? Which of those 4 people in this example probably put your sweater somewhere else? And check your biases. If you're always getting on your sister or brother's case about borrowing your clothing, it might be the most likely explanation. But if you decide that it's true for sure, that's a bias because you don't have any evidence yet, right? How do you make sure that it's your brother or your sister or your mom, or maybe you misplaced it and forgot that you misplaced it? How do you make sure? Okay. So your next move, how do you test the assumptions? If you assume that, oh yeah, it was taken or this happened, if you're assuming that, how do you test to make sure that actually happened? How do you find the truth, find what actually is really true? And what's the order of operation to figure these things out? So an example, so the sweater that's missing, right? How do you find the sweater? Do you start looking places it probably is first? Do you ask your mom? Do you ask your sister or your brother or whoever else about where it is? And you should keep your biases from influencing your actions. If you come home, you don't see your sweater, and you stomp over to your sibling's room and you throw open the door, and you start yelling at them for stealing your sweater, if they stole the sweater, they're going to be really defensive and upset with you, and they're probably going to say words back, and it's going to be a problem later. If they didn't take your sweater, they're going to be offended that you accused them when they didn't even touch the thing, and there's going to be problems later. But if you go over there, open the door, and say, hey, I can't find my sweater, do you have it? And don't be accusatory, right? You just ask. That keeps your biases from changing your action in a way that makes things harder for you. And you should order the actions from most least likely. Maybe your sister has borrowed your hoodie a few times, like 3 times, but your mom washes it all the time when she thinks it's stinky, right? Or she thinks it's dirty. So do you ask your sister first, or do you ask your mom first? I would ask my mom first. Be like, Mom, did you wash my hoodie again? Because I can't find it. And then if she doesn't have it, then ask your sister, right? That makes sense? I hope it makes sense.